Go to any country in the world and ask anybody of any age group to name one superhero, and you will most likely get one of three answers: Superman, Batman, or Spider-Man. Today's video is about the last one, Spider-Man. More specifically, Spider-Man's first 3D game. What's up, guys? This is the IJP Mexican. Welcome to my review of Spider-Man 2000. So it's the first 3D Spider-Man game, but after 20 years, is it even worth playing? Well, let's get into a review and see. It's been 20 years, by the way. That's pretty crazy to say. I mean, it makes sense, 2000, and then you just added 20, and then it's more than 20, so it's over 20. That's pretty crazy to think. Time's moving forward, people. It's scary. That's right, this is the first 3D Spider-Man game ever made by the people that also made the Tony Hawk games, Neversoft. That's an interesting repertoire right there. That's okay. Very random. I believe Spider-Man was an unlockable character in the second game, actually, which is a nice little tie-in for this game. I want everybody to keep in mind that I'm reviewing the PC version and not the PlayStation 1 version. A lot of people will say that the PlayStation 1 original is the superior version. I don't see how that is possible, though. The PC version has better textures and better models, and I don't know what the PlayStation 1 version has other than nostalgia. That being said, though, I do think the superior version might actually be the Dreamcast version, because you're probably going to run into less glitches, but we'll talk about the glitches on the PC version later. So, this game actually has a story that's worth noting, so I'm going to spend some time actually explaining it, going through it kind of quickly, just so we can get that out of the way. The opening scene is of Doc Ock giving a science expose while Peter Parker is in the crowd. Doc Ock seems to be reformed at this point, but Peter is not buying it. We also see Eddie Brock in the crowd, and he is very enthusiastically taking pictures. But then all of a sudden, Spider-Man starts beating up security guards backstage. Now, of course, this obviously isn't Spider-Man because, you know,
last time I checked, I was Spider-Man.
Eddie and Peter actually bump into each other in the crowd, but it happens so quickly that Brock doesn't really have any time to actually process this. Spider-Man steals Octavius's device and then turns to the crowd, notices Brock, and breaks his camera. Which is almost kind of a plot hole because this is clearly not Spider-Man, and if you're pretending to be Spider-Man, it's because you want the public to think that Spider-Man is doing something bad or illegal. So why would you actively go out of your way to destroy something that will provide evidence of this? It's kind of doesn't make sense. I guess you could argue that, like, oh, he's just trying to be a jerk to everybody, so everybody will hate him, so they'll smash that random guy's camera. After this little fiasco, Eddie has a mental breakdown and transforms back into Venom, and we have one of the coolest lines, the coolest sounding lines in this entire game.
Again, innocence falls prey to the evil of Spider-Man. Rest easy, Brock. Venom is here. And if it's the last thing we ever do, Jameson and the insect are gonna pay.
It gives me chills. It's really nice. I like it. It's creepy. Then we cut to a scene of mysterious figure number 1 and mysterious figure number 2. I have no idea who these people could be, but they're clearly the villains. I'm guessing one of the other guy is fake Spider-Man because he kind of looks like him. The first guy, no idea. They turn on the machine using Octavius's technology thing, and then some hatches open and let out a fog all throughout the city. And that's the opening of the game. And then we get a little Stan Lee intro, just basically saying, like, this game's gonna be fun. The first 2 chapters are actually kind of unrelated to the rest of the story, which is not a real problem. It makes the game feel just like a normal day in Spider-Man's life, you know, because he's dealing with a lot of stuff, not just like the main plot stuff, which is nice. Black Cat informs you that there's some robbers at the bank. You go and you stop them. Then after that, you call up Jameson and tell him that you have some pictures for him. And he responds with,
Parker, shut up and dial 911. Scorpion's here, and you have to...
You then go and stop Scorpion, obviously. And then, in classic Jameson fashion, once you do that, he immediately goes back to hating you. The cops show up and he demands that they shoot you, and the cops obey him. Insert joke about social commentary here. You jump out the building and you immediately run into Daredevil, which is just like a nice little cameo. He basically goes like, hey, are you the bad guy? And then you go, and he's like, okay, because, you know, he has superpowers and stuff. It's just a nice little cameo. You then spend several moments escaping from the police until they basically just give up because they crash into a little tower thing. You run into Black Cat again and she tells you that both Rhino and Venom are causing a little bit of mayhem. Rhino is causing a havoc at Omnitech, and Venom has control of the Jumbotron. You both decide to go and check out Venom's stuff first because it's on the way to Rhino. And there it is revealed that Venom has captured Mary Jane Watson.
Mary Jane Parker!
My bad, Mary Jane Parker. And that she only has 24 hours to live. After hearing this, Black Cat obviously tells Peter that she can take on Rhino by herself and that he should go and deal with Venom. And in response, we get one of my favorite Spider-Man lines ever in any sort of medium.
Rhino by yourself? Thanks, Cat, but no thanks. Look, being Spider-Man has given me a lot and taken a lot away, but one thing never changes. My responsibility to use my powers for others before myself, no matter what the cost. There are innocent people at Omnitech, and they need our help right now. I won't let them down. Then I'll stop Venom. And this time, it's for the last time.
It is the perfect example of what Spider-Man should be. It's amazing. I love it. Mwah! Mwah! Good job, game makers. Mwah! You do a good job. Mwah! Italian Spider-Man. As you're arriving at the scene, the technology is being flown away, and they both kind of lament like, oh, we got here a little too late. Oops. The game never explicitly tells you what this technology is, but you can infer what it is based on what happens in future levels, but we'll get to that later. You then go with Black Cat to fight Rhino, and she immediately is just taken out of the fight, unfortunately. And she definitely suffered some injuries there. I heard a very large stabbing noise. So she's gonna have to retire at like 30 or something. I don't know, probably even sooner than that. Rest in peace, Black Cat. Your bye-bye career. Once you take out Rhino, the police show up and Spider-Man has to, like, hide behind some barrels because he's still a wanted man. And then he sees Doc Ock actually helping the police. Then he thinks to himself, oh, maybe I was wrong. Maybe Doc Ock is a nice guy after all. He then switches into Peter Parker. He then witnesses Black Cat being taken away by paramedics that, they kind of give off a weird vibe. We then see the two shadowy figures again. Still have no idea who these people are at this point. It's a mystery. After that, Peter goes and hangs out with the Human Torch, which is really just another quick cameo. Johnny tells him to not fret, that Venom most likely is going to go out and find him, that he doesn't really need to worry about finding Venom. And this is true. A few moments after going out and swinging, you run into Venom. He taunts you and then leads you along.
Hey, wanna race? Parker hates it when I get the drop on him.
I hate it when he gets the drop on me.
You chase him, and then you fight him, then you go into the sewers, then you chase him for even longer, and then you eventually fight him again. Peter asks why Venom has returned, and Venom basically says because Peter is the bad one in this situation, because he thinks that the fake Spider-Man is the real Spider-Man that stole the technology. Peter very calmly corrects Venom on this misconception.
You idiot!
And reminds him that they were both there at the event and they bumped into each other. And then Venom goes like, oh, that's true, sorry. Peter takes it pretty well though.
Our bad? Our bad? I'm gonna kill you!
Peter Parker! Just get me out of here now!
They then both team up and try to figure out who could the imposter be, and they basically come down to two people. Mysterio and the Chameleon.
Chameleon was our idea. We thought of that.
Keep that in mind. Spider-Man comes to the conclusion that they need to use the Daily Bugle's database to really hammer down who the responsible person is behind all this. So they go to the Daily Bugle. And once they're there, and after Venom's done goofing off, he senses Carnage. He then completely ditches you at the worst time possible because right after that happens, Spider-Man's spider sense goes off and he witnesses, dun dun dun, symbiotes. Which is, I think that actually might be a slight plot hole, but we'll get to that in a second. After freeing some hostages, Peter goes deeper into the Bugle until eventually he gets to the printing room, where he discovers symbiote generators. Now this is the technology that I think was stolen from Omnitech to make these things. Again, the game never explicitly says this, but you can infer this is what was made because of the Omnitech stuff. He destroys them and then goes deeper down the Bugle, eventually getting to the furnace area, where he eventually encounters the imposter.
The imposter! The imposter!
No, not Ben Reilly imposter, but good guess. Topical for 2000, you know? It's Mysterio! Venom lost the bet. You lost, Venom. You fight Mysterio, and after beating him, we get one of the funniest lines in the entire game.
Right now you're thinking, if only you'd taken that giant act to Vegas instead.
Curse your endless babble, Spider-Man!
Spider-Man asks basically what's going on, and Mysterio reveals that the fog that's covering the city is actually getting people ready for symbiosis, and that there's more symbiotes out there. Spider-Man very calmly asks Mysterio to please relay the information on where the big bad guy is hidden.
Where? Where are they coming from?
And Mysterio acquiesces. You go to the warehouse and then there's a short Punisher cameo. Again, just another quick cameo for the sake of having a cameo. You go further down the warehouse until you're eventually underneath the water, through a lot of lasers and stuff like that, until eventually you run into Black Cat, which is there for some reason. He asks Black Cat what's going on, and she's basically like, I don't freaking know, why am I here? Spider-Man is able to stop the fog by closing the hatches without actually stopping the fog from flowing, basically making a lot of pressure and the thing going little mini explosions there, which turns off the power, but not the lights apparently. The lights are still on Spider-Man. That didn't activate. That didn't disactivate the power, but it did enough. So maybe just a few of the breakers popped. You know, maybe not the whole thing. Just the breakers that were connected to Black Cat's little force field thing. That's convenient. Spider-Man does that, and then Black Cat basically says, I'm gonna go get help, and then she goes off, and then we're off to the final confrontation with the big baddies. We finally run into the two mysterious figures, and we finally realize who they are. It's Doc Ock and Carnage. All jokes aside, I mean, the Doc Ock was obvious from the very beginning. It's the same voice. But I don't know how this happened, but I didn't know who the second guy was the very first time I played this game, up until the very end. And then when it was revealed, I was like, yeah, who else would it have been? It was just kind of dumb. Now you might be asking yourself, how is that even possible, film? Venom basically states that Carnage is in the game. Well, here's the thing. The part where Venom says,
We sense our other.
Who? Sense who?
It's our other, the symbiote known as Carnage. We must stop him.
For whatever reason, my child ears just couldn't process what he was saying, and all I heard was, we sense our other, known as Carnage. And I was like, did he say Carnage? Because I feel like it would have been more obvious if he said Carnage. Nah, he didn't say it. But then when it was revealed, I was like, yeah, okay. Who else would it have been? Yeah. Anyways, the enemy symbiotes that we were fighting earlier are basically spawn of Carnage, and Carnage is a spawn of Venom, and Venom is immune to Spider-Man's spider sense. I believe Carnage is also immune to it. So the part where Spider-Man's spider sense go off and the Carnage's spawn are behind him, is that a plot hole? Am I a massive nerd? Venom shows up out of nowhere, goes on to fight Carnage while we fight Doc Ock. We totally annihilate Doc Ock, and Venom totally gets annihilated by Carnage. And then we have to fight him. We gotta pick up his slack. What a slacker that guy is, surfing the web and whatnot.
Now?
We eventually take him down and the day is saved, but not yet! The symbiote latches onto Doc Ock's body and we get the game exclusive character Monster Ock. We then have to escape the exploding base as it is going into nuclear overload. It seems that all hope is lost because Spider-Man's basically just going to explode in the middle of the ocean holding Doc Ock. But then, no, that didn't happen because Captain America shows up with Venom and Black Cat and saves everybody. Except for Cletus Cassidy, whose unconscious body was caught in the explosion back at the very bottom of the base. Yeah, that dude just died. The game just killed that man and nobody cared. Yeah, that bothered me even as a kid. Like, hey, he freaking died. Nobody cared. We then get two cute little scenes between all the heroes that have shown up in the game and all the villains, which is maybe the reason why there's so many cameos, just so that the end scene would be balanced between all the heroes that weren't actually in the game, but just in some cutscenes and all the bad guys that you fought. It's nice, it's cool. I like how Doc Ock doesn't talk because he's just like so sick of everybody's shit. I love it. Also, there seems to be a glitch in the PC version, because for a few frames, it seems like I get the PS1 model? Is that just a me thing? Is that a universal glitch on the PC version? Or was that just like somehow something that what happened? And that's the story. It's pretty simple. I would say it's maybe slightly better than Saturday Morning Cartoon, but You know, it's in that ballpark, but in a good way, in a good, healthy way that's enjoyable. It's not bloated. It's not really, really stupid. I like it a lot. It's nothing out of this world, obviously, but, you know, it's sufficient. It's effective. It's a good story. I don't know why Spider-Man's Italian, but he is today. Mamma mia, ragazzo! So one of the things that really makes the story work is Spider-Man himself. They gave Spider-Man a lot of character. He actually feels like a human being. He isn't flat at all. He goes through all the emotions. He's funny, he's angry, he's sad, he's worried, he's concerned, he's annoyed. All the emotions.
Venom's ugly face on that big screen? Now that's scary. Yeah, just my luck. I'll probably get blamed for that too. No. Mary Jane. Oh, you're just too clever for me, JJ. Where's my wife, you symbiote freak? Oh, yeah. I bet there are no symbiotes in here either. Cat! It's not the heat, it's the humidity. Spare me the propaganda, okay? This isn't a game, Mysterio. The symbiotes will destroy everything in their path unless I can stop them.
He gets a little violent when he needs to. You know, he integrates that shadow into his personality to move forward in life. It's great. He actually feels like a real person with real thoughts and feelings. It's great. He's not just like a stereotypical superhero. Again, I mentioned this before, but I freaking love that scene where he tells Black Cat, no, I must go and save the people of Omnitech because I'm Spider-Man, that's what I do. And he doesn't... It's so refreshing, man. It's so refreshing seeing Spider-Man, even though this is from 20 years ago. It's so refreshing seeing Spider-Man be like, no, I gotta do what I gotta do. I'm not gonna cry about it, whatever. I'm just gotta move forward. I'm so glad. I mean, it would have been impossible because this is a game, but I'm so glad there isn't a scene of Spider-Man going like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be Spider-Man because Mary Jane's in trouble because I'm Spider-Man. Oh, even though this is like the 17th time this has happened, I'm gonna go through the same emotional state and eventually just go like, yeah, no, I should be Spider-Man because Marvel wants to keep making comics about me. Oh, geez, Rick, I'm Spider-Man. I'm so glad we didn't get a scene like that. It just feels really great. It feels really great having Spider-Man be a hero. I love it. I like the fact that he's married. I love this fact when I was a kid. Because it's like, oh, he's an adult now. Because that's what adults do. They get married. It's great. Now, Spider-Man is written well, but that would be nothing without the voice actor, Rino Romano. Rino Romano is my personal favorite Spider-Man voice. It is the voice I hear in my head when I am reading the Spider-Man comic books. He is really good. He was also the Batman. Remember the Batman? Not the animated series, but the one that was like after that. The Batman. Rino Romano is really good. Every single voice line in this game that he does is great. It's just full of character. You can tell he put a lot of effort into it. And it's the reason why during the Let's Play I tried to actually leave in those moments where Spider-Man actually says something, because they're great to hear. He is so good as Spider-Man that I actually went out of my way to watch this crappy cartoon, Spider-Man Unlimited. Is it Unlimited? Is it Ultimate? I don't remember what the fuck it's called. It's really weird. He goes into another dimension where there's like cat people. It's really bizarre, but it was worth watching because of Reno. Worth it. It was worth it. I just wanted to hear Reno be Spider-Man again, okay? That was the only reason. That's how much I like this guy. He does the voice acting for Spider-Man in a few different things as well. He has like a deleted scene in one of the X-Men games. He's in one of the X-Men fighting games for the PlayStation 1. And another game that we'll talk about in like a year. Really, all the actors here do a fantastic job. Venom, like I said before, man, that freaking voice. Mwah! Who did the voice for Venom? This guy did. Really? This guy? Really? Yeah. I also really love Mysterio. This is also the Mysterio I hear in my head when reading the comic. Again, I gotta play it again. I gotta play the clip again, because this is so great.
Curse your endless battles, Spider-Man!
I just freaking... that clip makes me happy. That clip just makes me so happy. I wish I could just put it in every video I make, honestly. It's just so good. All the voice acting is good, but what about the collectibles? That was a transition, boys. There's basically 3 different kinds of collectibles in this game. The first one is comic books. Really, it's just the cover of the comic books, but... comic books. There's 30... Is there 32? I should have looked at the number before doing this review. I think it's 32, am I right? Okay. There's this amount of comic books throughout the game that you need to collect. Some are really easy to find. Others are like, how was I ever supposed to guess that? Ever. I mean, eventually you would, but that's pretty, like, I wouldn't have thought of that. Yeah. And it's a nice little detail. I love the fact that I knew these covers rather well because of this game, but never actually got to read them until rather recently. And then once I read them, I'm like, hey, now I can like associate this cover with something other than just this game. We also have suits, because of course we do. It's Spider-Man. He has suits and stuff. Getting the suits isn't that hard. 2 of them you get just by playing the game. The symbiote suit you get just by beating the game on any difficulty, which is a nice reward. You get infinite webs out of it, but some of them are extremely difficult to get. If you know, you know. It's the quick change one. This, you need to go into training mode and you need to do the hardest training thing in the game, which is the zipline collecting thing. It's very difficult and it was a pain to do, but I finally did it. This is the first time I actually did it, so yeah, I did it for the Let's Play. And I believe I have all the footage of me attempting to do it, so let's watch the compilation of all the times I died attempting to do this.
Rapid fire through your skull, shot it all. We're taking it back to the days of trying to lose control. Walking in a blaze of fire, racing through my bones. I shit, I'm feeling it. Check it out. Oh yeah, fuck yeah, I feel like killing it. Check it out. Alright, that's what it's like to
Wouldn't wanna be ya.
Is it worth it? Hell no. Hell no. You don't get a bonus. You actually get a hindrance, because you only get 2 web cartridges instead of the normal 10. As a maximum amount that you can hold while playing as in the suit. So no, it's not worth it. Like at all. It's kind of stupid actually. Like this should have been like the unlimited suit. You can like turn invisible with the unlimited suit. That's like an actual reward. The quick change is just like parts of already existing suits in the game. Why is it this difficult to get? And the last one is the models that you can view. Now, this is like a collectible, this is like a soft collectible. There really is only one you need to collect. In order to do that, you need to go into what if mode and do the last level. Or actually do the fight with Venom, actually, not even like the whole game. And then you get Namor, which is nice. Another nice thing is that Stan Lee will have little flavor text for all the models, except for Namor, which is a shame. But, you know, listening to all that's like, hey, that's pretty cool. I like hearing that as a kid. It's interesting. You could just go look up a video on YouTube now to hear all the commentary, but you know, at the time it was like, that's cool, I like this. Like I mentioned before, we're playing the PC version, and unfortunately, retroactively, the PC version isn't the ideal version to play. The reason that is because the PC port was not made with longevity in mind. It works really well on original hardware, not so much on newer ones. Even though I have a way better computer now than when I did in 2000, for some reason this game will lag a lot. And I've heard people have the exact opposite problem where the game runs too fast. Like where everything's running at like 4 times speed and it's incredibly difficult to play. I received some tips from the Spider-Man 2000 Discord. What I was told to do was to do 2 things. Get a frame rate limiter and mess with the Windows 10 compatibility settings. This seemed to mostly help. It isn't like a one-to-one recreation to when I used to play on my old Windows XP, but it's pretty good. As long as I keep my laptop plugged in, it seems to be almost completely lag-free. So shout out to this gentleman, thank you for the tips. That guy whose name I do not remember off the top of my head. I can't believe I almost forgot to talk about this. The infamous glitch. The Venom Chase glitch. Now if you watch any other review of this game online, or you know, gone to any forum post or whatever, everybody will tell you that this glitch is in every single version of the game. The original, the Dreamcast, every single version. You know what version it wasn't on though? The PC version. That's right, when I played this as a kid on my Windows XP machine, this did not happen. I distinctly remember the first time I encountered this glitch because I went, what the hell is going on? This never happened before. Why is it happening now? Unfortunately, even with the frame rate limiter and the Windows 10 compatibility settings, you don't get it to work like it should, really. Alright, now let's actually talk about gameplay. So if you guys hate the camera system for Mario 64, you're definitely going to hate this camera. The camera is just constantly behind you. As you move, it will remain in place. It won't remain behind you. It will remain in the same angle until you stop, and then it will swing behind you again. So if you're moving and you go either left or right, you'll just be stuck with the camera on the side. Unless you tap the targeting mode button, then it will automatically swing behind you. But that's all you can do. You can't make it swing all the way around you. It's just going right behind you. So yeah, it's not that bad, but there was a few times where you're like, I wish the camera was better, but not that many times. Now this is a 3D game. This is a 3D beat 'em up, and in a 3D beat 'em up, you need to have some freaking moves and stuff. So obviously in a beat 'em up you can punch and you can kick. You can chain the punches and kicks together to get different results. For example, if you just do 3 punches in a row, then you get a 3-punch combo. Same thing with the kicks. But if you punch and then kick, you get a different kick, and if you kick and then punch, you'll get a different punch. Do they do more damage? I always thought they did, but I actually don't know if that's true or not. You can also combine the punch and the web button in order to grab onto an enemy, and once you're in that position, you can do 2 things. You can kick them away into another enemy, into the wall, or just simply away from you, or you can jump on their back and start punching them in the face. Much more violent option. Speaking of the web button, we have web moves because it's Spider-Man, of course we do. We have the very simple web up the enemy option, which you just hold the button down and then Spider-Man goes thwip, and then you wind up the enemy, and then he goes bye-bye into the abyss. Spider-Man sends them to the Shadow Realm. Very simple way of taking out enemies. It does waste a lot of web. I mean, it wastes more than just punching them, obviously. And it doesn't work on all the enemies in the game, so, you know, it stops working after like halfway through the game. And not only do you have that, but you also can combine the web button with the different direction keys. If you hit down or back, you will web pull the enemy towards you, and if you combine that with either left or right, you will web tilt them and web pull them to the side. It's not really like a swing. Web yank them to one of the sides of them, either left or right. This is not really reliable. It was definitely not very reliable when I was fighting Venom for the second time. It was a pain. It's kind of finicky. You can do it kind of consistently, but at some points of the game it just seems like it just won't work. And it's not that useful except for like in the Carnage fight and when you're on the train, you know the section. If you play this game, you know what section I'm talking about. You can also use the side buttons to make either web gloves, which will up your damage output, or like a web dome, which will temporarily make you immune to all enemy attacks, and then after a few seconds you will burst out of the web dome and do a little bit of damage to the enemies around you. This one takes a lot of web, which is you know, it's kind of like, it's not really worth it because the damage you do isn't that great, so yeah, probably just avoid that one. And if you hit the web button and the forward button or the up arrow, you will do a impact webbing, which is just a projectile that hits enemies and hurts them. It's pretty useful. But that's not all. If you combine the punch and the web button, not simultaneously, but one after the other, you can do 2 other moves. If you punch once and then press the web move, you will do a quick version of the impact webbing, which is very, very useful. And if you punch twice and then do the webbing, you'll do this little thing where you web up the enemy and like fling them over behind you, which is nice. You can also, while in the air, press the attack button and Spider-Man will dash towards the enemy. This is really useful for closing the gap between you and the enemy. Unfortunately, sometimes Spider-Man will stagger after doing this, and I don't really know why that happens. It seems to be completely random. Sometimes you can get a lot of hits off before this happens, like I did with Scorpion here, but most of the time you're not going to be able to do this. You're going to be staggering every 3rd or 4th hit. All in all, this is like a lot of different options. Really though, you're probably just going to end up either avoiding enemies completely or just punching them. But it's nice to have this large variety. It makes the game feel developed, which is nice. It makes it feel like a finished product almost. Let's talk about web swing, because obviously it's going to be a big thing in Spider-Man games because that's what he does. He does the swings. Now this game, the web swing works in a strange way. Basically, if you want to swing somewhere, you're only going to be able to swing to that destination if Spider-Man can get there in 2 web swings, because that's the max amount of swings you can do per button press. So if you're close enough to a destination and you press the button, he will swing twice or just once, but usually he will swing twice and land on solid ground, except for this one time. Or even know to do that. Why? Why, Spider-Man? Might be like the only time I've ever seen Spider-Man just completely fail and miss the target. Every other time I play this game, press the button, he lands somewhere consistently. So that's why I wanted to include this, because this was like, what's going on? This never happens. Imagine people leaving something like this in their game. That would be dumb. Anyways, you can jump forward and then press the button, which is something that is required for the first level of the second chapter. But you can also cancel your swing midair by pressing the jump button. Now you're probably wondering, why would you want to do this? Well, if you repress the button to swing, often you will swing faster, or you could redirection yourself to a different destination. So you can basically, instead of going swing, swing, and then land, you can go swing, jump, turn, swing. I explained that terribly. Basically, you can move around a lot faster than if you just let the animation play out and then land on the thing, you know? So, it's a good thing. It's pretty clunky, definitely compared to like the modern Spider-Man games, but if you master the art of swing canceling, you can get a lot of momentum actually. It feels pretty exhilarating for a game from 2000. There's a few more things you can do. There's a targeting mode button, which I mentioned before, which isn't really useful. Like, it's interesting that it's there. It's neat, but it's not super necessary. The most useful thing about it is the thing I mentioned before, where you tap it and then the camera swings behind you. So as a reset button for the camera, it's a good, but other than that, yeah. We also have the zip line button. If there's something above Spider-Man, you press that button, he'll go thwip and go up, which is neat and is very necessary for the last level. So, this is a 3D beat 'em up, as we mentioned before. What do you need in a 3D beat 'em up? You need some enemies. Now there's basically 4 or 6 enemies in the game, but really just 4. The first one is the henchman. The henchman has 2 guns. He will shoot you, and I think only in like one level that he's in, he'll throw grenades at you, but very rarely. He is the most basic enemy. He will also do some melee damage, because obviously, why would that not be a thing? He's very basic, he's very easy to take out. He's the first enemy you encounter ever in the game, so obviously he's going to be easy. The next one is the thug, and he's basically the same, but he has a fully automatic rifle, and he does some of the kicks, which those kicks, I don't know if the animation actually is faster than other enemies that do melee damage, but those kicks seem to be pretty deadly. They're basically essentially like the same enemy, except for the thug, and they can't throw the grenades, so you don't have to worry about that. Now the two enemies that are like kind of not really there are the NYPD officer, and then there's another NYPD officer that's not the NYPD officer, but it's another type of officer. They're basically like the same kind of enemies as the henchmen and the thugs, so yeah, you're also not really meant to fight them. You're supposed to just like swing by them on the level where you're running away from the police. So yeah, if you actually stop to fight them, Spider-Man will go, I don't have time for this, I gotta keep moving, because you're not really supposed to fight the police. Social commentary joke number 2. See, both sides got one. It's funny. The next enemy is the Lizard Man, which this is when things start to get a little more difficult. For one, you cannot web up the Lizard Man. No matter how many webs you shoot at this man, he'll just keep going, he'll just keep dancing, and eventually he'll just pop out of the webs. And yeah, you had to punch him in the face, actually. He will hit you with his tail, he will swipe you with his claws, he can actually grab you similar to how you can grab them. He will spit acid from you at afar, and usually he's in like a group of 3 or 4. This enemy is pretty notorious because of the train level that everybody hates, which is honestly not even that hard of a level, but it's just annoying because if you fail like the last moment, you gotta play the whole thing over again. The last enemy is the symbiote, and he is the most annoying enemy in the game. Similar to the Lizard Man, you cannot web him up. He is resistant to web attacks, which is really annoying because Spider-Man will constantly be going like, my webbing just doesn't have enough oomph, or whatever he says. He noticeably has a lot more health. The Lizard Man also has more health, but the symbiote, you can tell, man. They can punch you, they can kind of like do this like little thing where they like just kind of like jump at you, which is annoying, and they can like shoot projectiles from afar as well. Now yes, you can add magnesium to your webbing to make it burn to kill the symbiotes in one impact webbing, but they're still really annoying. Basically, the magnesium is there to like level the playing field, because otherwise just the levels of the symbiotes would be everybody's least favorite and most hated because they're terrible, they suck. But a lot of times you can just kind of like mosey on by them, especially like towards the end. You can just completely ignore them. So, you know, one interesting thing that I noticed is this game attempts to do the thing that 2D beat 'em ups do, where you know you're moving forward and then you gotta stop and defeat all the enemies before you can keep on going. This game attempts to do this in 2 different ways. First way is with hostages. You can't just keep moving forward, you gotta actually stop and defeat the enemies, make sure they don't kill the hostages, and then you can keep going. The second way is with the symbiote generators. Spider-Man actually like turn around and be like, I can't move forward, I gotta destroy all the generators in one part. And that being said, he really should like want to stop and defeat all the enemies and also the generators for narrative reasons, because he's like freaking out about the symbiotes and stuff, so that's kind of like a flaw there. Overall, the enemies are pretty good. There is a couple sections where you can just completely ignore them, and it does feel not necessarily like a flaw or like an oversight, but it does feel kind of like, I can just ignore the enemies. Well, why are they here? Maybe you should have prevented me from doing that a little bit more. But on the other hand, if they were like too much, like you gotta stop and defeat all the enemies all the time, then it would feel incredibly like restrictive. So it's kind of a balance. Now, what are the enemies without the bosses? First up, we got Scorpion. Scorpion is I think a really good introductory boss. The great thing about it is that Jameson is there too, so he can kind of like distract Scorpion, which gives you time to get used to the new camera angle, because in boss fights, the camera is fixated on the boss and not just stuck behind Spider-Man like it usually is. There's a lot of furniture and cabinets throughout the level which you can use to throw at Scorpion, so you don't just have to punch him. So it's a little more dynamic in that way. But you can also punch him and he will kind of get stung, but eventually he will just slap you. Once he does do that, he will go back to trying to pursue Jameson. If you attempt to go on one of the walls or the roof, he will shoot a little ray at you, which is something that all the bosses do. If you're on the walls or the roof, they will do something to try to get you off there, which is a good thought on the developer's part, because you know, you're Spider-Man, you're obviously going to be trying to crawl on walls and stuff, and they can't have you be doing that all the time, because you know, you got to fight the boss. This boss has 2 phases. It's really just like to reset the room so you have more stuff to throw at Scorpion. I would say Scorpion's probably like mid-tier boss. The next one we have is Rhino, and Rhino is somehow easier, but also not really, but actually, he is just easier. You can't punch him like you can punch Scorpion, because he'll just sit there and hardly take any damage, but all you need to do to defeat him is wait for him to run at you and then move out of the way. That's all you need to do. On easier difficulties, you just need to have him hit the 4 electrical things, and you don't even have to have him hit the barrels. So yeah, really easy fight. It would have been really nice to see Spider-Man fight Rhino alongside Black Cat instead of Black Cat's spine just getting destroyed in the first 30 seconds of the fight. Alas, we did not get that. Maybe that was what they wanted to do, but the technology just didn't allow them to do that. It's a shame. It would have been cool. The next fight is Venom, and Venom is either the most difficult fight or the second most difficult fight, depending on how you want to look at it, but we'll talk about that later. Venom, unlike every other boss, does not have the camera lock onto him, and there is a lore reason for that, is because he is immune to Spider-Man's spider sense, so it makes sense. He also turns invisible and reappears throughout the fight, so it wouldn't really make sense for, you know, the camera just to immediately show where he is when he reappears. That would be stupid, but also, again, the lore reason. That's why I think it happens. Venom is a strong boy. Venom will tank your punches a lot of the time. He'll just ignore damage. Venom can grab you and just throw you and laugh at you. He can defeat you pretty fast, so you want to keep your distance. But not too much distance, because otherwise he'll reach for you or pull you with his web and give you a socking in the face. And that's not good. A lot of the times he'll like reappear too far away from you, and then he'll be like, "Hey, get back here," even though you weren't trying to get away from him. It's a very infuriating fight if you're fighting it legit. You could just spam impact webbing if you had the symbiote suit, but guessing you're not doing that and you're actually playing the game, you're gonna have a difficult time. Very challenging fight, but a good welcome challenge, but also sometimes not, because it's like, this is too stupid. But the rematch isn't as difficult. Yes, we do have Mary Jane to worry about, but the arena is a lot larger and we have respawning health power-ups, so it's kind of a balance. Also, his attention is split between Spider-Man and turning on the water to drown Mary Jane, so you know, it's kind of divided there. Gives you a little breathing room at some points. Definitely easier. Harder than Scorpion and Rhino, but definitely a lot easier than the first encounter. Mysterio. Mysterio is also a interesting boss. This is the only boss with 2 phases. The first one you have to hit the lighting conduits to diminish his power. And then the second one you just gotta hit his little laser things in his head. Since the conduits are throughout his body, you have to go up and down the different levels to fight him, and depending on what level you are, he will do different attacks. He'll step on you or try to smash you with his hand, or if you're on the top level, he'll try to grab you and throw you all the way down. It's a nice use of his size, although realistically he could just grab you and clank. But then again, Mysterio's powers are not being able to transform into big stuff. He's just makes you think that's what's happening, you know. The second phase can be very hectic. I've seen him move like crazy with those lasers at times, and he'll just hit you a whole bunch of times and you're dead. Funny enough, Mysterio has been simultaneously probably the fastest time I've had killing a boss, which is like 40 seconds, but other times that I played this game, I've had to redo the fight a whole bunch of times because it just seems impossible. So two radical extremes there. Just, he can either be like extremely easy at some points, but then also be impossibly hard, and I don't really know why. I've heard similar things from other people too, so it's not just like a me thing. Now there's 3 more or 2 more depending on how you want to look at it. The most disappointing boss fight in the entire game, unfortunately, is Doc Ock. He is the big baddie, and he really should be the best boss fight, or one of the best boss fights. He's at the very bottom though. All you have to do is wait for the buttons to appear, click them, and then his force field goes away, and then you punch him. It's almost as easy as the Rhino fight. Now in the beta version of this fight, it involved you clicking buttons to activate magnets to pull up his metal arms until eventually all 4 of them were up, and it had him hanging from the ceiling. There's leftover from that concept in the game, because once you turn on all the buttons and the force field goes away, he does that animation where he's hanging from the ceiling, which never really made sense to me until I knew about the beta version of this fight. Really, the fight should have involved in some way disarming his arms from use and then being able to punch him. They had a better idea in the beta version than this fight, really. It would have been cool if you could like web pull the arms to the walls and like web them there, like get him like stuck into the walls and then hold him with a web, you know, 4 times until he's just like sitting there like a normal dude, and then you punch him in the face. Something like that. Something that involves his arms. It's a very obvious thing to do, not just like, let me push the button 4 times. Last, or maybe second to last, depending on how you're looking at it, we have Carnage. Carnage can be the easiest fight or the most difficult fight, depending on how you want to go about it. If you want to cheese it, he is the easiest fight, because all you need to do is get him in the bubble once, which isn't that hard to do, and then just either keep tapping the web button, or if you have the symbiote costume, just hold the web button and keep him there in the bubble. Yes, the bubble will dissipate, but then it will reappear and he'll still be there, and then he'll take the damage. If you want to do this fight legit though, that's a different story. Carnage doesn't take damage from normal punches. He just doesn't take, or maybe he takes like a little bit of damage, but he essentially takes no damage from normal punches. You have to get him into the bubble to do damage. You can do that in a few ways. You can punch him into the bubble, you can grab him and kick him into the bubble, or you could web toss him into the bubble. Sounds pretty easy, right? No, it's not that easy. I had a real difficult time with the web slinging him into the bubble, but only on like one of the sides. You can get into a situation where he punches you, and he'll just, you know, start laughing at you, and then you get up, and before you can do anything, he just punches you again. And then he does it a 3rd time, and then all your health is gone. If he can throw projectiles at you, and I swear, if he starts throwing those projectiles, he will not stop until it hits you. No matter how many times you dodge the thing, you just keep waiting for him to stop. he just won't stop. I'm pretty sure he doesn't stop until he hits you. You do get some interesting voice lines with Spider-Man. I never heard a lot of the ones that we heard in the Let's Play, which is I was like, oh, that's interesting. Very unfair. These two boss fights, pretty like undercooked, honestly, which is kind of disappointing. And the last boss fight is Monster Hawk, but it's really just a chase scene. So is that a boss fight? I mean, I guess the terrain is a boss, but if that's the case, then it's more spectacle than actual challenge. Then again, if you're not that good at maneuvering with the web, you know, web canceling and all that, then you are going to have a semi-difficult time. Monster Hawk does rubber band pretty bad though, so you might not just want to like keep moving forward no matter what. You might want to like space out your movements in a couple spots so he doesn't just like appear right in front of you. If we combine these 3 or 2 bosses, does that make one good boss? If we see him as like different phases, I would still say no. They're pretty bottom tier. They feel pretty undercooked, which is a shame because every other boss feels like they were put a lot of effort into it, or at least enough effort into it. Except for like the Rhino fight, that one's kind of like. We do get another missed opportunity though with this Carnage fight. Why couldn't we fight alongside Venom? That would have been real neat. Maybe Venom can be the one that gets him into the bubble, and then we have to hold him with our webs or something like that. You know, something other than just there's a bubble and then you gotta push him in there and then that's it. The people who made this game clearly had a lot of fun doing it and clearly cared about this game. Just look at the credits and you can tell that they clearly cared. A lot of effort went into this. Getting Stan Lee, I think this like might be the first time I heard Stan Lee's voice actually. Maybe not the first time, but one of the first times. I knew who he was before ever playing this game, but it was still like, it's freaking Stan Lee. It was cool. All the cameos are just a nice little nudge to the fans. Completely like unnecessary. You didn't need to include that in the game at all, but they did anyways, which is, I love it. It's great. Another great thing is that if you enter a swear in the cheat codes, Spider-Man will show up and he'll smack that swear away and it will change. They didn't need to include that. Like they didn't need to do that. They did that because they were having fun. Let's talk about the music really quickly. The music is really good. It's pretty catchy. Unfortunately, it loops terribly. You can very obviously tell when it loops. They're very short loops also, so it's very noticeable, but it's good enough. It fits. It's nothing fantastic, but it's also pretty catchy. Some of the songs are pretty catchy. Unfortunately, on YouTube, people have uploaded the tracks from the PlayStation version, but it labeled them as if they were the PC version, which there's a noticeable difference in audio quality in those two versions. So, although yes, they're the same tracks, no, you shouldn't label them as the PC version because they sound way worse in the PlayStation 1 version, which is the version that they usually upload because that's the version that everybody likes, even though it's probably one of the worst versions of the game other than the N64 version. Why? Now here's the ultimate question. Is this game good? I clearly like it a lot. Is it good, or is it just my nostalgia talking? I have no idea. I cannot see the forest from the trees on this one. I played this game too many times for too long. I can no longer see the like objective good things about it or the objective bad things about it, I would say. Because it's almost become second nature to me. Like if I was to give this game to somebody who's never played it, would they find anything enjoyable about it, or they would just be like, this is like a very basic 3D beat 'em up? I don't know. Like, I'm too familiar with this game basically. It's too much. It's too second nature for me. It's just like I almost don't even have to think about it at this point. Whereas with a game with Mario 64, I can say, you know, yes, this is a good game despite its age and despite some of the critiques that aren't that really valid if you actually pay attention to it. With this game, I can be like, it's pretty good, but how good? Can I recommend this game to somebody? Maybe. Soft, yes. I'm not really sure. I can't tell. I don't know. I will say, check it out definitely for Reno alone. He does a really good job. So that's the end of the review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. Finally got it done, boys. We did it. Spider-Man. Great game, loved it a lot. Luckily, it never got a sequel that was underwhelming and just not very good at all. Oh, what's that over there?
Oh my God!
Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. Like the video. Like the comment, leave a video.
I'm already at full health.
Curse your endless battles, Spider-Man!